Hey, everybody, and welcome to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. So glad you're here to talk some tunes with us today. My name's Kyle.
My name's Brian.
And we are 2/3 of the rock and roll band Blue Turnip, who, if you're keeping track, we're probably like one of the top 10 greatest bands of all time.
Easily, maybe even top 6.
Yeah. But if you're interested in us, we've got an EP that's anywhere where music is found. It's called Songs from the Root Cellar by Blue Turnip. Spotify, Apple Music, whatever your jam is, Amazon, it's all there.
Yeah.
But we're here. This is episode 3, talking about the best albums from every calendar year from 2000 all the way up to 2020. In our first 2 episodes, we covered 2000 and 2001. We talked about some great music, didn't we, Brian?
Heck yeah, we did. It's been a great time to be alive.
Yeah, man.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not prepared.
It's okay, man. It's right in the title, Bad Podcast. That's why you put it up there. Well, we always mention, why would you care what we have to say? I've got a background, majored in music in college, composition, songwriting, classical piano, all that stuff. Try and listen to as much music as possible from all sorts of varying genres. And Brian, why don't you tell me about your background?
Yeah, I play the drums primarily, play a little guitar, a little keyboard, done some songwriting, done some DJing, love music. Something different to talk about this time. I love live music. I go to a lot of festivals, as many concerts as I can. Just like to be surrounded by the tunage when at all possible. So yeah.
Yeah, man, dude, we passed I didn't mention it because it was so sad, but we passed the 1-year anniversary of the last show that you and I went to together a few weeks ago. Yeah. Devin Townsend in Charlotte. That was an awesome show.
It was so cool, man. That was my first metal show.
Yeah, me too.
It was fun.
And 2 of the 3 bands were awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. We were right up front. Well, we'll talk about that later because we're going to talk about both those. Well, I'm going to talk about both those bands later on in further episodes. But
yeah,
today,
it's funny that you mention it because
No,
because
please go ahead.
That same week, me and my wife saw Billie Eilish, and that was that? I don't remember if it was before or after.
I think it was after, because I think it was one of the last concerts in the United States. Because people were saying it was like the last concert of the year.
That's right. Yeah, it was the last one that she did on that tour, and just shows you how eclectic our listening is, from Devin Townsend to Billie Eilish in a week.
Yeah, in the same week.
But yeah, definitely miss it. Hoping the live stuff gets back in action soon.
Yeah, me too, man. I know. And some artists have been doing some really, really cool online stuff. I will say, I know you're a big Ben Gibbard, Death Cab, and he did a lot of cool stuff early on. And I'm a big Switchfoot fan. They've been doing cool stuff. I'm a big Neil Morse fan. He did his Morse Fest virtually, which was so cool. And he just announced that they're offering virtual tickets for that again this year. So I'm pretty excited because I don't have to drive 11 hours to go to see that again. But so yeah, shout out to those bands. Jukebox the Ghost, another band that I like, has been doing some awesome YouTube live stuff. Shout out to those bands that have been keeping us thriving with the live streaming music, even when we can't be there in person.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, today we are talking about 2002. That means we already talked about 2000 and 2001. So today, 2002. And we were talking about, before we started recording here, Brian, we were talking about how we feel like 2001, 2002 is like a big time transition period for rock music, kind of like freeing itself from some of the genre constraints and influences of the 90s, and kind of like starting to form into like a new modern rock sound, and kind of brand new pillars of chart topping rock artists were coming out that hadn't previously been around. And you got any thoughts on that transition?
Yeah, I think it's a definite transition. I was telling you, like, I'm just looking at my list from the year 2000 compared to 2001. Even that 1 year, such a big difference. Like, my number 5 was in 2000 was Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. and my number 5 in 2001 was "Is This It" by The Strokes. So you're looking at like an indie rock band versus like your cliche like please the masses rap rock, what everybody was listening to. So I feel like bands kind of came more into their own, and we'll definitely see that keep progressing as the years go on for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm excited to move forward with our episodes because my personal favorite era of music is from like 2003 to 2006, and I feel like we're like right on the edge of that here in 2002, where that was kind of in my opinion, '03 to '06, those 4 years, it's kind of a time when the sort of like modern rock sound hadn't really been nailed down yet. And so artists were just allowed to do whatever they wanted. And audiences were really receptive to very widely varying and interesting albums and sound changes and recordings and even and that sort of filtered into some other genres too. There's some really I mean some very lasting pop songs from that era that I still listen to from time to time and um, yeah, lots of cool
Mhm.
stuff in 2002. Definitely, like in my opinion, like leading into some of my favorite music over the past 20 years.
Yeah, and I'm a big indie guy, and I can see like indie bands becoming more and more prominent as the years go on, producing stuff on their own, going out on their own, sticking it to the man almost, like getting away from that massive like contract studio influence, overproduced stuff. So yeah, I'm excited to move forward as well.
Yeah, man, awesome. Well, and not to speak ill of any of the music that we've talked about before, or the music that we're going to talk about in 2002, because this is great stuff. I mean, we're talking
Yeah,
about some good music today. Well, let's yeah start to make our way towards it. So we got a brand new segment for you guys today. This is Brian and I text about the show on and off, and he was like, "Dude, we should do Blue Turnip song breakdowns." And I was like, "That is such a great idea, Brian. Thank you for saying that." And so today we're introducing a brand new segment, which is Blue Turnip song breakdowns. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you want to hear these songs that we're going to be talking about over the course of the next, a handful of episodes, you can find them on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, wherever you listen. Songs from the Cellar by Blue Turnip. And today we're talking about track 1 from that EP, which is called Guardian Angel. And I'll kind of kick off the conversations about this because this is my one song from the EP. We'll just mention, so it's a 5-song EP. One of them's mine, one of them's yours, which we'll probably talk about the next time we do this.
Mhm.
And then the last 3 are all Andy's, and we'll talk about Andy's son today. We're talking about Guardian Angel. So this is actually this is one of the songs that we as a band have been playing. One of the originals that we've been playing for the longest. This is the very first song that I ever wrote totally independently, and I guess it was probably like sophomore-ish year of high school, freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school, something like that. No, it had to be, must have been sophomore year. Yeah, must have been sophomore year. Sorry. This is riveting, I know. But just a little like kind of behind the curtain peek of like writing this song. So it's probably the most like poppy of the songs on our EP, which is kind of funny because I tend to be like the least poppy of the 3 of
It's true.
us. But it's like a minor key piano ballad, and in the chorus it shifts over to the major key. If you're a fan of Bleach, I was talking to my wife the other day about the band Bleach, that is not the anime, which nothing against the anime. Brian, I know you and I both love the last Bleach album, Farewell Old Friends,
Yeah,
and
it's
there's a
great.
song on there called Gonna Take Some Time. And definitely wasn't conscious, but the very first song you ever wrote, there's going to be some influences in there. And it's like when I go back and listen to that song, I'm like, oh wow, this is like almost in some ways kind of my own version of Gonna Take Some Time by Bleach.
Yeah.
Very similar chord progression, very similar vibe. But when I originally wrote the song, as I mentioned, like we've talked about in previous podcasts, I'm really into prog rock. And in my piano lessons at the time, I was playing this really runny, like hand over hand piece. I can't remember what it was called. It had something to do with like storms or rain or something like that. And I thought it'd be really cool for like that classical piano piece to be the bridge of this pop song that I had just written, Guardian Angel. So it'd be like 2 minutes of pop music and then like a minute and a half of classical and then a minute and a half of pop music to close it out. And I remember I played it for Andy. I was like, what do you think of this? And he was like, I think maybe you should just write a bridge. He was like, nothing against like what you're doing there. He's like, but I think it would be a way more cohesive song if you just wrote a bridge. And I was like, whatever. And then I was like, yeah, he's right. And I didn't really write a bridge, but I did, throw a new chord progression in there and ended up turning into what is the guitar solo of the song. So that's just a funny little behind the scenes picture of the writing of the tune.
It's a ripping guitar solo.
Oh, thanks.
It's a good one.
Thanks.
And I'll jump in here. I really like the way, like you said, we've been playing the song forever. Well, since sophomore year in high school, since your sophomore year in high school, but it's evolved so much. I know I've changed the drum part a lot over the years, tweaked it here and there, but yeah, you want to talk about how it began and where we ended up now?
Yeah, sure, man. Well, it's fun because I was talking about to you this before we started recording. This is a really rare song for us because we actually have 3 recordings of it. And only one of them is commercially available. But if anybody listens to this and they're like, oh, I want to hear the old ones, just like put it in the comments below and we'll get them to you. But she was my girlfriend at the time who the song is about, Katie, and my wife now. We recorded like professional demo version of it. Like we live recorded a professional demo of it at a church with a studio engineer, and it came out pretty good. And I just sang the guitar solo. I did it like la da da da. But that's a really cool like little duet recording of the song. And then I guess it was probably 2 years after you wrote it, maybe my senior year, your sophomore year of high school, when our parents, as a Christmas present for us that year, bought us some studio time. Mm-hmm. And we went and we live recorded 4 songs. And Guardian Angel was one of them. And, it's really raw, obviously, because we were young and it was live recorded. But that's a fun recording to listen to because there's a lot of things about that recording that are the same in the final professional recording that we laid down. And there's several things that are quite a bit different and not nearly as clean. But yeah, kind of fun to listen to sort of the progression of where the song's gone over the years.
Yeah. Whenever I listen to the old one, actually, it's funny that you mentioned the Christmas present. I still have like the framed picture that our parents gave us that says you're going to record, because it was like a big deal because it was our first time recording. But yeah, that version of Guardian Angel during the bridge or the guitar solo, I miss so many bass drum hits. Like they're just non-existent. It drives me insane. So I'm glad we re-recorded it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the guitar solo because at I played the guitar solo pretty well, and at the very, very end, the very last note, I like came off of it really awkwardly. And the studio engineer just left it in there. He was like, it's live, it's hilarious. And we were like, that sucks.
Rules. And one thing I'll say about what when you write songs, I love when you bring your songs to me, and because you always give me free reign over the drum part, which I appreciate. And a big thing for me for Guardian Angel was dynamics. I wanted it to be a very dynamic song. So I had a lot of fun with that, playing the drums on that one. I always have fun playing drums on your songs. We got the connection.
Yeah, man, dude, that's what I miss the most about being in the same town. It's just like workshopping those songs together and making it vibe. But
yeah, and I'll toot your horn for you here. Kyle wrote a cello part for this song also, which is new for the new recording. And the sickest part of the song is when the guitar solo and the cello are playing against each other in the bridge. It's genius. It's so cool. I love it. It's my favorite part of the song. Yeah.
Putting that music degree to work, baby.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the record, and to toot your horn, I love the drums to this song, and one of the coolest things because this was the third song that we recorded for the EP. We recorded two already. This is the first track, but it's the third song we recorded. And one of the coolest things about us getting to do this professional EP process was getting to hear each track, like each instrumental track, one at a time. And both Andy and I, when we were listening to the isolated drum track, we were like, if you listen to this separate from the song, it kind of sounds like a hip hop beat almost. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
I can see that.
it's really bass drum driven, and like the fills are just so cool. And like if you then when you put the texture of the rest of the song on top of it, and it's like this piano ballad, I don't know, it adds so much to the vibe of that song. It so easily could have just been like a really boring song, but like you said,
Oh,
the
thanks,
drum
man.
beat that you added on there and the dynamics, really really cool.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Doing a lot of tooting, a lot of horn tooting. You gotta listen to it. Everybody's gotta listen to it for themselves just to see how awesome it is.
Exactly.
We chose it to be the opening track because we thought it would resonate the most with fans. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'll be sure to put a link to it. I think it's that corner where it shows up to the YouTube, the official YouTube recording that Bandcamp so kindly put out into the world for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess one last thing about it before we move on to the best music of 2002. So just to talk about the recording process when we did it at Baumhaus Studios in Morganton. This was probably the worst song that we recorded in terms of like our studio experience. Because I remember the first one, "What Do You Want From Me?" It was so smooth, so easy. We were so ready to go. The second song, which was your song, which we'll talk about next time, so I won't give too much away. We kind of recorded it in pieces, and all the pieces went really great and came together very nice. And so we finished recording your song that day. And then we figured we've been playing Guardian Angel for our whole lives. We'll just take, the rest of the studio time that we have this day and lay it down and finish it up.
Mm-hmm.
And we just recorded it exactly how we've been playing it live for the past, 5-6 years at that point. And we just played all the tracks, laid it down, and then we went home. We were like, "Good job, guys!" And then we got the first mix of it, and we were all listening, and we were like, "This is really bad." We realized that like the electric guitar track like was just not working at all, and the keyboard track needed to be totally re-recorded, and the cello part really needed to be tweaked and fixed up some. And I think the only things we ended up keeping from our original recording were we kept the drums, the bass, and the vocals. And we just totally took everything else away and just re-recorded it again on a completely separate studio day. We relayed down the keyboards. We fixed the cello up with some synth cello. We invented brand new acoustic and electric guitar parts, which are they're not hard parts to play, but we just had to like come up with new parts because what we had just wasn't working at all. So it was really interesting. It was probably it was definitely the song that like I was most heartbroken to hear the first mix, because I was like, it just didn't come out. The first two songs came out so great, and we got the first mix for that one, and I was like, oh, it just didn't come out good. So we just had to end up spending that extra day in the studio to fix that one. But it was worth it, because I think
definitely worth it.
The final master for that one came out really good in the end.
Yeah.
Well, that's thoroughly enough about that song, but I think, but first ever Blue Turnip song breakdown. That is track 1 from our EP, Songs from the Root Cellar, Guardian Angel. So check it out if you want to hear what all the fuss is about that is exclusively being made by the two of us. All right, well, let's give them what they want, Brian. Let's transition into the best albums from 2002. So I've been talking a lot. I'm going to turn it over to you in just a sec. I'm just going to rip through 3 rapid fire honorable mentions from the year 2002 that just didn't quite make our top 5 list, but are great albums. So these are not in any particular order. We've got Truth, Soul, and Rock and Roll by the Elms. I actually mentioned the Elms were also an honorable mention for 2001 for me. They were really starting to hone their sound for this album, and really every single song in this album is great. It's a little bit, it runs together a little bit if you listen to all 12 of the songs in a row. But if you pull any song from that album, you're like, wow, this is a great tune. It's a great song. So just some good old 2 guitars, bass, drums, rock and roll. Truth, Soul, and Rock and Roll by the Elms. Great one. Next one, we've got Pointless Nostalgic by Jamie Cullum. This is Jamie Cullum's debut album. If you don't know him, he is like a modern jazz / pop pianist, songwriter, super talented dude, great piano player, great singer, really cool arrangements of both his songs and the covers of the old standards and modern pop songs that he does. But this is a great first album. He pretty much had his sound established well and good. I think he would go on to write some better songs in some future releases, but the songs in this album are great. So Pointless Nostalgic by Jamie Cullum, great one. And finally, we got one more debut album, The Wee Hours Review by the band Roman Candle. Brian, you and I are North Carolina music artists, so I always have a soft spot in my heart for other local artists. Roman Candle's a Chapel Hill-based outfit, and they just make really cool music. This is their debut record. Really great songs. I'll talk about Roman Candle more in a future year because one of their albums is on my top 5, so I won't give too much away about them. But yeah, The Wee Hours Review by Roman Candle, awesome. Like, I guess indie rock, indie rock you'd probably call it. Really great songs, great songcraft from those guys. Really cool sound too, very full, layered sound. So yeah.
Nice. Had no idea they were from North Carolina.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know.
Well,
no
cool,
respect.
Man. Let's start off the top 5 from 2002, and I've been talking a whole bunch, so I'm going to turn the floor over to you, man. What's your number 5 album from 2002?
Number 5 from 2002 is Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips. Now this one was interesting for me because I don't know a lot about the Flaming Lips, kind of like a research-based thing, and a lot of my friends were telling me like, yo, Yoshimi, like that's the album, that's the one. And I don't know how much you know about them, but this is I think it's their 10th studio album, and I saw they had been around since the 80s. Wow. I had no idea. No. I thought they were more like modern. Yeah. Shows you what I know. But yeah, I don't know anything about the Flaming Lips. But yeah, I ended up really liking this album. I've listened to it several times. I actually switched it with a number 5 I had originally because I was digging it so much. But I think it was their most successful album. It's really weird. Like I guess it's got kind of a theme. They don't call it a concept album. I know they actually turned it into a Broadway musical. I saw. Oh, wow. Yeah, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. I don't really know what it's all about, but it's kind of goofy. Like the lyrics when you listen to them, there's a lot of like robotic sounds, like kind of sounds like throughout the songs, and it's all over this like real mellow, like acoustic guitar driven, like pretty songs. So it's kind of an oddball sound when they add all the like robotics effects and like some of it's kind of cheesy sounding. It might be an early 2000s kind of thing, but it's cool and it stands out. And yeah, I've been liking this one a lot. Like I said, don't know a whole lot about the Flaming Lips, so if listeners are Flaming Lips fans, tell me what to go to next, because they have like a million albums. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really don't know much about the Flaming Lips either. I pretty much know they kind of controversially redid Dark Side of the Moon. Is that right?
I remember that.
Yeah. And I know that was like, very, very polarizing for a lot of people.
Yeah, they did the whole album. Yeah.
And then I know you and I are both big Comedy Bang Bang fans, and I know their front man, Wayne Coyne, I'm pretty sure his name is, the Flaming Lips guy.
Oh, not sure.
But he was on a Halloween episode of Comedy Bang Bang, and he was hilarious.
Which one was that? Was that an older one?
Season 3 or season 4, I think.
Okay.
Something
I probably
like that.
saw it. I just don't remember that.
Yeah, they do like 3 or 4 like kind of classic ghost stories, and he's just like in the centerpiece of them. Like they do this like Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart, but instead of like killing a man, he has stolen Reggie Watts's like fake drum machine and hidden it under the couch for himself. And he keeps hearing in his head all the noises that it makes, going jam, hip hop, remix. So there you go, Flaming
Comedy
Lips
Bang Bang.
fans. Yeah. That's what we know about you.
Show. That's hilarious.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm interested. So what was it about this record that ended up making you bump it up to the 5 spot instead of like out of the honorable mention spot?
Yeah, it's kind of just a sound that I like. That I like a lot of indie rock, and I feel like this is a staple in the indie rock world. So yeah, I like those. I like more mellow, simple acoustic sounding songs. So it really just hit my style. And a few of my favorites while I'm at it, the title track, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots Part 1 is the one that I dig the most. They have this really big song called Do You Realize? Really catchy, just well crafted, interesting songs. So yeah, I ended up really liking it.
Sweet. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. All right, I'll turn it over to you because I don't know what else to say about the Flaming Lips. Still learning.
That's a great pick, man. It's a great pick. Well, I need to listen to that one because, like I said, I don't know that much about him either. So that'll be added to my list.
Sweet.
My number 5 is Sea Change by Beck. And if you're out there listening, I'm sure that you're so excited to hear another white guy in his late 20s talk about sea change. This is like the ultimate like white guy in his late 20s, early 30s album. So we all know Beck, and my favorite stuff from Beck, just like probably most people, is that like kind of mid-late 90s when he was like sort of at the height of his weird like alternative rap, pop, alternative, all that good stuff. And this is he's always had like a real strong soft place in his heart for just like singer-songwriter stuff. And this is an album that he just like fully embraced that singer-songwriter stuff, and just rattled off 12 super mellow, mostly acoustic guitar driven tunes, and they're really nice. Let me see. I've got just to pull a few of my favorites from the track list over here. Guess I'm Doing Fine, awesome. Lost Cause, End of the Day, Already Dead, Sunday Sun. Oh yeah, these are just great tunes. Kind of country-ish at times, like definitely a little bit of a twang to some of the recordings. And speaking of artists that we don't know all that much about, I'm pretty sure that Beck sort of comes from a background of music. I think his dad was a film composer or had something to do with classical music in some way. And that definitely comes through on this album as well. There's some really, really cool arrangements of strings that really kind of plays with different modes and like smushes major and minor on top of each other at times and creates sort of like these eerie soundscapes. But yeah, just a really cool, very different album from Beck. Probably like it's probably my 3rd or 4th favorite Beck album. It's the only one that made my countdown just because his other albums either came from the 90s or came from years that were just stacked with like other some of my favorite stuff. But he's a really cool artist. I mean, he was a really big influence on me, especially when I was a kid. And like I mentioned in earlier podcasts, when I was just looking for anything different to hang on to, and artists that were doing creative things, sort of outside the box things, and he definitely fits that bill. And to go off something that you mentioned in a previous podcast, I know that you were talking about the Eels album from 2000 that you mentioned. What was the name of that one again?
From 2000.
Yeah.
Or was it the one last time?
I think it was 2000 because
that one was Daisies of the Galaxy.
Daisies of the Galaxy, yeah. Because I was listening back through that, and I remember that you mentioned you were like, it kind of has some Beck influence in there, and I was like, oh, big time, yeah. Like you can definitely hear that Beck influence in there too. But
yeah, and Beck's gone a lot of different directions, like you said. I just started collecting vinyl recently. I just got Odelay. It's so good. I think that was from the 90s, like the mid
96, maybe. 97, something like that.
Yeah. But like what's because you said it's your third or fourth favorite Beck album. What was your favorite like sound style that he did? Because he's been all over the place.
Yeah, I think Odelay is probably my number one. Just so cool. It's probably one of the most eclectic of his, where he just wasn't afraid to like do anything. And my second favorite is pretty close. I love The Information. I think that was somewhere in like the '05 to '07 range. Um, Really cool album. Yeah, yeah. It's funny you got Odelay on vinyl because I know that I think the almost the entire B side of that record has the like kind of background vinyl sound in the back. I wonder if they still put that on the vinyl because I know that
So
like
it's just like
yeah.
it sounds so warm.
Because yeah, like Where It's At starts with the needle hitting the record,
Yeah.
and then that just kind of stays in the background for like the whole last 5 songs of the album. So
It wasn't. Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. I didn't notice it anything crazy, but that's pretty funny.
yeah. What about you, man? You got any favorite Beck?
Oh, delay.
Yeah, it's
That's why I got
classic,
it.
man. It's nonstop.
It's a cool sound. Yeah, I didn't like his modern stuff as much. I remember like this is a funny thing. I remember. I forget which album. I think it was the album that he won a Grammy for, the one that Kanye tried to take away.
Yeah, what was the Harvest Moon or something like that? Yeah,
Yeah, that was the one he did with Danger Mouse, right?
yeah.
Because Danger Mouse like just told him to slow everything down. We always joke that like Danger Mouse says, because Danger Mouse like produces for everybody and makes them famous. It's like Danger Mouse says, just slow it down. Just slow it down. Yeah. Anyways. He slowed it down and he won a Grammy. So
There you go, man. That's all it takes. Listen to Danger Mouse.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn it over to you, man. What's your number 4 from 2002?
All right, my number 4 is an album called Sha Sha by Ben Queller. I'll talk about how I discovered this guy first. I have this movie that I love called Rudderless. It's like my favorite movie. Me and my wife's favorite movie of all time. We've watched like 10 times. We force all of our friends and family to watch this movie when they come to our house, Kyle and Katie included.
Yep.
We're like, you're here. You have to watch Rudderless.
It was great.
It's so good. Yeah, I won't explain the whole plot. Just watch it for yourself. It's great. But it's a music movie, and there's a lot of really good original songs in a movie, which is kind of rare to find. Kind of like catchy pop rock songs, I guess. And the bass player in the movie, side character, his name is Ben Queller, actor slash musician, and I was like looking up the movie Rudderless to see who wrote the songs, and I saw he had a big part of it. And I was like, wow, I really like these songs. So obviously, I decided to look him up, and did some thanks to the internet and like Reddit and stuff like that. I'm like, what's Ben Queller's best album? Like, let's get me started on this. And everybody said Sha Sha, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna check it out. Checked it out, loved it. It's so good. It's like it's rock. Kind of honestly has a little bit of a Ben Folds kind of sound. I know we were talking about Rock in the Suburbs last week. I don't know if that was a big sound for that time, but it definitely has that kind of influence. But he's kind of one of those guys that's all over the map too. He's done a country album. His last album was more straight pop. He's done some rock stuff, but he's been all over the place. Just a really good songwriter. Yeah, so I'm a big fan, and the big song from the movie Rudderless he actually wrote with Selena Gomez. So that's interesting. But that was
Nice.
a good catchy pop song too. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of people know about him, so definitely would recommend checking him out.
Yeah, I listened to this one when you sent your 2002 top 5 over, and I don't know if it sounds as much to me like Rock in the Suburbs, but when you mentioned Ben Folds, I think definitely that like '90s Ben Folds 5, that kind of like
Mm-hmm.
raw, fun, um, power poppy, yeah, like definitely right in that vein.
Yeah,
And definitely that early indie influence. Yeah, it's cool music. It's really good stuff.
yeah, he's pretty cool. Yep. All right,
Rock and
man.
roll, rock and
Kick it
roll.
to you.
All
Number
right.
4.
My number 4 from 2002 is this is kind of an interesting one. I know last time in 2001, I had a live album on there. And this is a live album as well. And I only have 3 live albums on my whole, all 21 of these years. So this is knocking out the second one here. Back in the US by Paul McCartney. This is a double album. It's a live album. It's when he was touring his Vanilla Sky record, and he did his first global tour in a long, long time. I can't remember the last time that he did a big, huge tour, hence the name Back in the US. He was back in the United States. And I know, people are kind of funny about Paul McCartney these days. John Lennon obviously got so idolized, partially because he deserves it and partially because he died so tragically young. But he's always been the one that's kind of been considered like the genius of the Beatles. And I am just such a huge Paul McCartney fan. And I think he is really kind of the driving force behind why so much of the reason why the Beatles were so great, especially in the back half of their career. And this double live album is just kind of like a celebration of him and of all the Beatles. He covers a song by each of the Beatles or sings a song about them. And I'm always kind of waffly on live albums because usually they're just kind of like worse versions of songs that you like. But the thing that's so special about this one is he takes all of these classics, well, not every single one of them, but he takes so many of his classics, and they are, in my opinion, the best versions of these songs that you'll find out there. Like some of these, I got these highlighted here. These are the songs that I feel like are the best Paul McCartney recordings that you can find of these songs. Jet, Let Me Roll It, Here Today, Band on the Run, Maybe I'm Amazed, Live and Let Die, and Lady Madonna. Just like outrageously amazing recordings of each of these songs. And he also does a whole set where it's just like him by himself on stage. That's the back half of disc 1, really intimate. And it's not all just like acoustic songs that you would expect. Like he does We Can Work It Out by himself with an acoustic guitar. He does Carry That Weight from the Abbey Road album by himself on the keyboards. Just some really, really cool stuff. Disc 2 starts off with Eleanor Rigby, which they do live, and they just have one keyboard player play like all of the string parts, and he does an amazing job. And just one more note about this album, this recording of Maybe I'm Amazed was actually the first dance at Katie and mine's wedding in 2013. So
Nice.
special heart connection to this one as well.
Heck yeah. And obviously Paul McCartney is like one of the greatest live performers of all time. Perfection. I got to see him live at Bonnaroo in 2013, and it was like the best day of my life. I mean, like you're saying, all of his songs are like perfect, and there's so many just like great songs. And when we saw him live, he played for over 3 hours, and it felt like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I was so sad when it was over. I was like, what? I remember he played, because at Bonnaroo they're on really strict time constraints to keep everybody on schedule, and they'll tell people to get off the stage, like, get out of here, like your time's up. They didn't do that to Paul McCartney. They let him go through ZZ Top's set. ZZ Top's probably at their tent with like 3 or 4 like hardcore fans there. Everybody else is watching Paul McCartney. But yeah, I'm glad you picked that album, because the live Paul McCartney experience is like beyond special. It really is.
Yeah. And I didn't see him on that tour, but I guess it was summer 2015. We mentioned Andy a couple times. We forgot to mention that he's the third person in our band, Blue Turnip. Andy and I and my wife Katie went to see Paul McCartney in South Carolina when I graduated college. It was like our graduation celebration. And same as you, like we were like literally at the top of the arena, like we could touch the ceiling of the arena, and it didn't feel like it at all. You just feel like a little kid, and you're just like so sucked in. And he does such a great job. Like you mentioned, Coldplay a couple episodes ago does such a good job of engaging the audience, even those that are way far back. and like his whole stage, you probably didn't experience this as much at Bonnaroo because I imagine the crowd just sort of goes out away from the stage. But in the stadium, when we went up, the whole floor of the stage was like a light show. It was really, really cool. But yeah, awesome. Sorry, my dog just broke loose outside. It's been my wife's trying to wrestle with him out there. Sorry, I keep looking over there.
Hear a couple barks here and there. Our top fans are dogs.
Well, okay. So now we got sort of an interesting thing. So you and I both have the same number 3 and number 2. But they are or we have them in opposite orders.
Yeah, flip-flopped.
So my number 3 is your number 2, and
yes,
vice versa.
Yeah, something like that.
So let's start. This is your number 3, my number 2. We've got Hi-Fi Revival by the Orange County Supertones. I'll let you kick it off, man. What you got about Hi-Fi Revival?
I'll tell you, it's my favorite Supertones album by far. It's just fun to listen to. Like if you had to put it in like fun albums to listen to category, it's probably near the top. It's just like you smile the whole time you listen to it. Every song is so fun. Like Superfly, the opener, instantly engaged. Have you seen the music video for that one?
I actually haven't. No.
It's just like a janitor dancing with a mop.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like that's the kind of vibes you get from this album. But it just keeps getting like more and more fun. There's never a dull moment on this one. There's even a lot of times where they left stuff in where they're like goofing around, talking to each other in the studio. But yeah, I guess it's not as like hip hop as their previous albums. I don't know if you'd agree with that. It's more like I don't know, pop songs, catchier songs. It was a little bit of a change up for them, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, they kind of left the rap behind on this one.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you said this is your favorite Supertones album. It's either my favorite or second favorite. I can never decide. But I totally agree with you. This sound is just so much fun. I mean, it's 15 tracks and you just don't get bored. Like 14 of the 15 are just like an absolute blast.
I know.
And the one soft song, Hold On to Jesus, which is track number 4, just kind of nestled in there, is like one of the greatest Christian songs ever written, in my opinion.
I agree.
It's just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous song. Super catchy chorus, great recording. And you got the Supertones, the horns. The horns are all throughout this one. They add such a nice layer, so much fun.
Yes. So good. So good.
Great album cover too. Them all in the water, wearing their nice stage clothes that they always wore. With their trombones and stuff under the ocean. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, speaking of great album covers, we'll go over to maybe one of the all-time most recognizable album covers. This is my number 3 and your number 2, the debut release by Audio Slave.
Yes, from Christian to Satan. From number 3 to number 2. Audio Slave was huge for me when I was growing up. Easily my favorite band in middle school. I think I was in like 7th grade when I really discovered them. And it's just rock, like hard rock, heavy riff rock, with a lot of really cool guitar solos. Tom Morello, when he's got some good solos and he's got some not good solos. I feel like this album has all of his best guitar solos. And he's known for being an innovator. And I think me and Kyle are on the same page when we say we like Audio Slave better than Rage, which might cause some rage.
For sure. No, it's no question.
Yeah. And this was such a good debut album. I mean, all the riffs on this thing are so memorable, and it just hits me in my heavy spot. It's so good.
It's probably the greatest riff rock album of all time. I mean, like,
it's that good.
Yeah, just the collection of riffs that are like you can almost just listen to the, like, if the 14 songs were just like the riffs for just like 1 minute each, it would still probably be one of the best riff rock albums of all time. But well, so Chris Cornell, obviously such an amazing vocalist, and like that really shines on this record as well. I mean, like partially that he's just such a great singer, but like he's also a really cool songwriter, and that's one of the things that really boosts Audioslave up above Rage for me, is that his songwriting style is so evident, and kind of mixed with Tom Morello's ability to write really cool riffs. Yeah, just really great music.
Great combo. And do you have a favorite guitar solo on this album? Because there's a lot of cool ones.
You know, I don't know. It might be kind of cliche, but Like a Stone, that's a great guitar solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite one. My favorite riff is Show Me How to Live. That, I think that's probably my favorite riff of all time.
It's so awesome. Headbanging stuff. But my solos that I like the most are What You Are. That just nasty, heavy, so dirty solo. And Shadow on the Sun kind of has that like bagpipe kind of solo.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool. And worst solo award goes to Bring 'Em Back Alive.
Well, okay,
so bad. So I played that for one of my buddies. I was like, dude, just listen to this, like no context, and he just busted out laughing.
So it's really funny you mentioned that. And so I like this album is great enough. We've talked about how awesome it is. Greatest riff rock album of all time. It's on both of our lists for sure. So in my opinion, if this album were 9 songs long, it would be one of the greatest albums ever made in the history of music. Like songs
it is
like
a little long.
Yeah, like Bring 'Em Back Alive, you can totally get rid of it. In my opinion, like the B side is a little weak in my opinion. Like I'm the Highway, Hypnotized, Light My Way, The Last Remaining Light. Not my favorites. They feel like they're a little bit underdone compared to the first half, and like the choruses aren't nearly as catchy. The solos are kind of oddball, like you said. I don't know if you're right. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I don't want to be sacrilegious, but
no, you're right. I was going to mention that, but I totally forgot that it comes out of the gate really strong. So I definitely agree. Like I'm looking at the album runtime; it's an hour and 5 minutes. That's a long album. I'm like a 45-minute attention span kind of guy. So I agree with you. Yeah, just like out the gate.
Yeah, there's some gems back there, like Exploder, great song. Getaway Car is probably my favorite of the mellow songs on the album. But in general, those first 7 are outrageously awesome.
Yeah, and I'll drop in a funny story real quick, because like I said, Audioslave, I started discovering them in middle school. And I remember we were on a road trip, and I had the CD in my little Walkman, and I was listening to the CD, like blasting it. And my mom was in the passenger seat up front. She's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "Audioslave, baby." She's like, "What is that?" She takes it. So I like hand her the CD, and you were talking about the album cover. She's got a big flame on it. She's like, "What is this? What does this mean?" It's like, "What is this satanic music?" It's a flame. I'm like, it's just rock. And then she starts reading the lyrics book. I was like, "Oh no!" And she's like, she's going through them, and like Gasoline comes up. She's like, "All these songs are about fire." I'm like, what does that even mean? And then she gets to set it off, of course, which has two huge F-bombs, right? But it's like the most bad F-bomb of all time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
That's the thing. Yeah, and
completely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes it works. Like sometimes, like there'll be profanity in a song, and you're just like, they're just throwing it in there, or like that's just the way they talk. Like Ben Folds is a guy, like he cusses in a lot of his songs, and it doesn't bother me at all because it just feels like super authentic to his songwriting. Some guys you can tell are trying to be really cool or like trying to throw it in there, but Set It Off, probably the greatest F-bomb in recorded music. If I had to pick one.
See, and they only have one cuss word on all 3 albums, and it's that one.
It's the greatest one of
So
all time.
like they knew yeah. He had it in the bank. He's like, can't wait to release this. Drop the bomb, baby.
I think my second favorite F-bomb of all time would have to be from Laura by Billy Joel. That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a sneaky one.
And probably my third favorite is probably the end of Fired, the mother effer at the end of Fired by Ben Folds that we talked about in our last podcast. That's a great one as well.
We should do a top 10 F-bombs countdown for a podcast.
We absolutely should.
Yeah. Well, we already told our number 1, but it's all right.
Yeah. People won't remember.
Yeah.
All right, so we speaking of number 1, we have arrived at our number 1 albums from 2002. Just to recap up to this point. So Brian's 5 through 2, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips, Sha Sha by Ben Queller, Hi-Fi Revival by the Orange County Supertones, and Audio Slave by Audio Slave. And what tops your list from 2002, Brian?
At the tippity top and in my top 10 albums of all time. So this is a big one for me. A Rush of Blood to the Head by Coldplay.
Nice.
I think I already spoiled this one like twice. But there it is. Rush of Blood to the Head. It's perfect, man. I love it. I'm a big Coldplay fan, and this is my favorite Coldplay album. It had to be number 1 on my list. It's just awesome. The opening track, Politic, just hits you so heavy. You're like, oh yeah. Like Coldplay's taking it up a notch from Parachutes. Like, this rock, baby. And like so many, there's a lot of hit songs on this album. The Scientists and Clocks were obviously the 2 like most massive ones. And they're not my favorite of the tracks, but when you put it all together in an album, it's got a great flow to it. Really cool sound, kind of like an early Radiohead influence, a lot of kind of darkish sounding songs mixed in with your more lighthearted ones, like Politics, kind of heavy, kind of dark. A Rush of Blood to the Head is kind of a dark sounding song, one of my favorite Coldplay songs of all time. It's just really good. A lot of great melodies. Every song is so catchy. Great sing-along stuff. Chris Martin's voice is like angelic to me. Like he's like my favorite vocalist. They just had the sound. They nailed their sound for this album. Rush of Blood to the Head. Big fan of it, obviously.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's got some really great stuff on there. I know, like you mentioned, the ones that I tend to not like from this one are like the monster hits. But especially like kind of opposite from Audio Slave, like the B side of this album really does it for me. Like pretty much from Daylight to the end, more or less, like really cool stuff there.
Yeah, they kind of put all their singles at the top for sure. And I love the singles. Like, don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. And like Clocks live was incredible.
Really?
Yeah, they rocked it out way harder.
Oh, nice.
But even like God Put a Smile on Your Face is a really cool song with a wicked guitar solo. But yeah, this was like, for me, just such an iconic sound. Rush of Blood, that like I think a lot of Coldplay fans would agree that this is like their masterpiece.
Yeah. Not only for them, but I mean, it's a defining sound for, the past 18 years of music. I think it was such an important and shaping album for pop rock and alternative rock in so many ways, of like, hey guys, this is kind of what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
But
I just had a funny little note about this one, because you're not a big Coldplay fan. I'm a massive Coldplay fan, but you actually made me a Coldplay fan, because I remember you're in like a cover band in high school, and you guys played Warning Sign.
Yeah.
And I remember it was on a CD that you had, so you could like practice with it. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, what is this? This is nice. Little did I know people would make fun of me for listening to it.
That's a great song, man. Yeah, Warning Sign is one of my favorites on this album for sure.
Yeah, there's just something about their sound. It clicks with me. Gives me the chill goose, man.
The chill goose.
Yeah, just like it never gets old for me. I listen to it all the time, constantly. It's
That's
never out of my rotation.
that's great, man. That's what you hope
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I'll take it to my number one. My number one album. Well, I guess I'll count up my 5 through 1. So I had "Sea Change" by Beck, back in the U.S. live double album from Paul McCartney. The Audio Slave debut, "Hi-Fi Revival" by the OC Supertones, and my number one album is another double, "Snow" by Spock's Beard. So yeah, I'll mention. So double albums are usually kind of funny for me because, like you said, like attention span's sort of a thing. Uh, and a lot of times double albums is just like it's hard to listen to something for 2 hours in a row, um, unless you like know everything really well, or like you're at a concert and you're singing along or something like that. um, and most of the time when I hear a double album, or when a band that I really like does a double, I'm like, yeah, you could have cut these 8 songs and made it a really awesome single, or something like that.
Mhm.
And this album, "Snow" by Spock's Beard, really stands out to me because it's one of the only double albums in my discography that I don't feel like that. That I feel like every song on here is necessary. This is this album is a little bit funny. Some people are not super hyped on this album because they feel like it's too influence heavy. It's definitely got Genesis influence. It's definitely got Gentle Giant influence. Um, I and the concept is relatively similar to like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Genesis, like pretty relatively similar story about like a young man with sort of semi mystical powers like traveling to New York City. um, but th- in my opinion, this is better. Like it's and maybe that's just because I'm a young man and I didn't grow up with that like classic '70s prog. But this is just a really really fantastic album, and this is Neil Morse's last album with Spock's Beard, before he left to do his solo stuff. And I mentioned I had a band that he was involved in 2001, Transatlantic. This is another band that he's kind of the front man of for this period. And his strength is, for the prog side of all of us, he gets those really intricate time signatures. You get the layers, the awesome organ and keyboard solos, guitar solos, the horn tracks, all that like symphonic stuff that we all love. And then he just hits you with melody after melody after melody that ties it all together. And that's really what makes Neil Morse, in my opinion, stand out from other modern day prog artists. Is his melodies are outrageous, like just hit after hit after hit, especially in this period from like 2002 to 2012, 13 or so. He was just on fire.
Yeah.
But and one thing I'll mention about this one, so this was the very last album that he made with Spock's Beard, and they never toured it because due to like various personal reasons, they basically recorded it and then he like bailed. Um, and so this was some stuff that like they never really got the chance to tour this album. And gosh, I wish I should have looked up the year and remembered. It was either like 2017, 2018. Um, Everybody who has ever played with this band, Spock's Beard, got together and played through the full album twice. Once at Neil Morse's festival that he does in Tennessee, and once at some sort of like big other festival. I can't remember what it was. And I got to be there for the Morse Fest one. And it was really, really cool because when Neil left, they basically had their drummer step up and become the frontman, almost sort of like Genesis style when Phil Collins took over as the frontman of Genesis. And he's such an excellent performer. Nick DiVirgilio, awesome singer. He plays some guitar. Well, he plays a little bit of everything. He's so talented. But they've also had another frontman over the years, Ted Leonard, who has kind of like the classic, like high style 80s metal voice. Who's like, yeah. and so they had 3 lead vocalists and they all sound so different. And that was one of the coolest things of seeing it live. It's a concept album. There's lots of different characters. And instead of Neil singing every single song and the whole thing, they all got to play like different parts and different characters and stuff. And it was just such a cool experience to be there and like witness this thing that got recorded in 2002 and didn't get performed for like 15 years. And then all these guys came back and performed it together. It was a really cool experience.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And like you said, a double album that can keep your attention like that, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice pick. I'll have to check that one out. I'm honestly not super familiar.
It's a cool one, man. It's a cool one. I give you some tracks to listen to, but I pretty much got to say, start from the beginning, man. But if I was picking out a couple of favorites, I love Devil's Got My Throat. The 7th track on disc 1 is awesome. Open Wide the Floodgates Part 2, also on disc 1. Wind at My Back, one of the biggest hits that Neil ever had. He plays it live all the time. Looking for Answers, that's a Nick DiVirgilio song on disc 2. Yeah, just some really, really awesome tunes on this one.
Sweetness. My phone just rang and I could hear it in my ears because it connects to my computer. Did you hear that?
No, you're good, man. It's all good. No, it's all good. We got distractions in this one.
At this time of day, who would call me? Anyways, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. That was our top 5 from 2002. Hopefully we give you some awesome music to listen to or to revisit if you haven't visited it in a long time. This is just so much fun doing this podcast with you, man. I love doing it.
It's a blast. And I'll give you a little tease for next year. It's my personal favorite year of music ever. Ooh. 2003. 5 of my favorite albums. 2 of them I consider perfect albums, as in no bad songs.
Wow.
I only have like 5 of those total. And they come in the same year. So I'm really, really excited about next year.
That's awesome, man. Oh, looking forward to it. I don't have my 2003 pulled up. Let me see what I got going on. It's a pretty dang strong year for me as well, man. Like I said, 03 to 06 is probably my favorite overall period of music. So we'll have some good stuff to talk about next time.
People powered through the first 3 episodes. Now we'll get to the good stuff.
Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. As we said, next time we will be talking about the best albums from 2003. And if you're a Blue Turnip fan, Brian, I think, will break down his song, A Lack of Sleep, I'd say. That was track 2 on our EP. So if you're hanging on the edge of your seat waiting for that behind the scenes breakdown, you're going to get it a couple of weeks.
Yes. Sounds awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. This has been Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for 2003.